the account that posted before I did. My name is Connor, and this happened during the summer after my freshman year of college. At the time, I was 19 and still living with my parents whenever I wasn't at school. I worked part-time at a sporting goods store about 15 minutes from our house, and most of my free time was divided between playing basketball, seeing friends, and staying up too late scrolling through Instagram. I wasn't an influencer or anything close to one. I had around 700 followers, almost all people from school, work, or college. My account was public, but I never thought that mattered. I posted the same things everyone else did: pictures with friends, occasional gym photos, concerts, restaurants, and whatever else seemed worth sharing. Looking back, I posted much more information than I realized. Not my address or anything obvious. But if someone paid enough attention, they could figure out where I worked, which gym I used, what kind of car I drove, and roughly when I was usually home. The whole thing began with a follow request from an account called Connor Daily. The username was close enough to my name that I assumed it belonged to someone I knew making a joke. The account had no profile picture, no posts, and only followed one person, me. I accepted the request, mostly because I was curious. A few minutes later, the account posted its first picture. It was one of my older Instagram photos, a picture of me and two friends at a football game during senior year of high school. The photo had been cropped, so I was the only person visible. The caption said, "Day 1. I sent the account a message asking who it was. There was no response. I assumed one of my friends was messing with me. I screenshot the account and sent it to our group chat. Everyone denied making it, but nobody took it seriously. One friend said it was probably a bot copying public accounts. I blocked it and forgot about it. The next morning there was another account. This one was called Connor Daily 2. It had posted a picture of me entering the sporting goods store where I worked. The picture had been taken from across the parking lot. I was wearing the same clothes I had worn during my shift the previous afternoon. The caption said, "Day 2. He works until 9. I remember staring at the picture longer than I should have. The store sign was visible behind me, along with part of the parking lot. My face was turned away from the camera, but it was clearly me. I sent the screenshot to my manager and asked if he knew anyone who might be doing it. He said no and suggested it was probably someone I had upset online. I blocked the second account. That night while closing the store, I paid much more attention to the parking lot than usual. It was mostly empty by 9. There were a few employee cars near the entrance, and a pickup truck parked near a fast food restaurant across the road. One of my coworkers, Malik, walked out with me. I told him about the accounts, and he agreed it was creepy, but said it was probably someone from school trying to get a reaction. I drove home and checked the rearview mirror more often than necessary. No one followed me. The next day passed normally. By the time I woke up the following morning, there was a third account, Connor Daily 3. The account had posted a picture of my car parked in my parents' driveway. The image had been taken at night. The caption said, "Day 3, home before 10, upstairs room on the left." That was when I told my parents. My dad took the phone from me and read through everything. My mom immediately checked every downstairs window. Neither of them dismissed it as a prank. My bedroom really was upstairs on the left side of the house, at least from the perspective of someone standing in the street. My dad called the police non-emergency line. An officer came to the house that afternoon. He looked at the screenshots and asked whether I had any ex-girlfriends, enemies, arguments, or people from work who seemed unusually interested in me. I couldn't think of anyone. The officer said the posts were disturbing, but because the accounts had not made a direct threat, there was not much they could do yet. He told us to save everything, make my account private, stop posting my location, and call immediately if anyone appeared near the property. My dad installed 2 cameras that evening. One faced the driveway, and the other faced the backyard. I started believing whoever it was had gotten scared after I involved the police. Then on Friday night, my friends convinced me to go to a small party at our friend Ethan's house. My parents did not want me going, but I felt ridiculous staying locked inside because of an Instagram account. I promised not to post anything and told them exactly where I would be. Ethan lived about 20 minutes away in another neighborhood. There were maybe 15 people at the party, all people I knew. We stayed mostly in the backyard, listening to music and sitting around a fire pit. I never posted a picture. Nobody tagged me. At around 11:30, my phone buzzed. A friend request, Connor Daly 4. My stomach tightened before I even opened it. The new post was a picture of Ethan's house. It had been taken from the sidewalk outside. The caption said, Day 4. He thinks not posting means I can't find him. I immediately stood up and walked toward the side gate. Ethan asked what was wrong, and I showed him the post. He turned off the backyard music and told everyone to stay inside. 3 of us looked through different windows toward the street. There were cars parked along both sides, but we did not see anyone standing outside. I called my dad. He told me to call 911 instead of driving home. Police arrived about 10 minutes later. They searched the area and spoke with several neighbors, but no one had seen anyone taking pictures. An officer drove behind me while I returned home. The next morning, the account was gone. My parents convinced me to call out of work for the weekend. I stayed home, kept the curtains closed, and barely slept. Every sound outside made me check the camera feed. On Sunday afternoon, I received a direct message from a normal-looking account belonging to a girl named Alyssa Green. Her profile had years of posts, tagged photos, friends, and comments. She looked real. The message said, I think the person bothering you is following me too. I replied immediately. She claimed she lived in a town about 40 minutes away and had received similar accounts posting pictures of her workplace and home. She said she found me because one of the fake accounts had followed both of us. We talked for nearly an hour. She seemed scared. She sent screenshots that looked similar to mine, with captions describing her schedule. She suggested we compare information to figure out whether we knew the same person. At first, it felt like a relief. Finally, someone understood. She asked where I went to college, where I worked, and whether I had recently attended any concerts or events where the stalker could have seen me. I answered some questions vaguely, but avoided giving exact locations. Then she asked whether my parents' house had a back entrance. That question stopped me. I asked why it mattered. She said she was trying to understand how the person might have photographed my home without being seen. I told her police were handling it. Her responses became shorter after that. Before ending the conversation, she wrote, Just be careful tonight. I searched through her tagged photos more closely and noticed something strange. Her oldest post was only 3 months old, even though the account looked much older. The captions referenced previous years, but every image had been uploaded recently. I reverse searched one of the pictures and found that it belonged to a woman in Oregon with a completely different name. The account was fake. I called the officer who had taken our report and sent him everything. That night, my dad and I stayed awake in the living room, watching the security feeds. Around 1:20 in the morning, the backyard camera sent a motion alert. At first, we saw only darkness and part of the fence. Then someone slowly rose into view from behind the bushes. The person wore dark clothing, gloves, and a baseball cap. Their face was covered by a black mask. My dad called 911 while I watched the figure move toward the back door. The person tried the handle once. Then they crouched near the bottom of the door and pulled something from a bag. My dad switched on the backyard floodlight. The person looked directly at the camera. For 1 second, I saw enough of his eyes and forehead to know he was a man, but I did not recognize him. He ran toward the fence. Police reached the neighborhood within minutes. Officers searched yards and side streets, but initially found nothing. Then a neighbor reported a car parked behind a closed daycare 2 blocks away. Police found a man sitting inside. His name was Trevor Lane. He was 27 and lived in the same town where I attended college. I did not recognize his name, but police found something on his phone that explained everything. Months earlier, I had sold an old gaming monitor through an online marketplace. Trevor had purchased it. He came to my dorm parking lot, paid me, and left. The listing had been connected to my real name and profile picture. From there, he found my Instagram. At first, he apparently followed me because he liked my posts. Then he began saving them. He created folders, wrote down locations, and used tagged pictures from friends to track where I spent time. He found my parents' house through a photo I posted years earlier showing our street sign in the background. Police found hundreds of screenshots on his devices. They found the fake Instagram accounts, the fake profile pretending to be Alyssa, pictures of my house, pictures of me at work, and notes about my schedule. They also found burglary tools in his bag and a printed floor plan of a house with a layout similar to ours. Trevor initially claimed he only wanted to scare me, but once detectives showed him the tools, notes, and messages, that explanation stopped making sense. He was charged with stalking, attempted burglary, harassment, and several computer-related offenses. He eventually pleaded guilty and received prison time followed by probation and a protective order. I made every social media account private afterward. I deleted years of old posts, removed followers I did not personally know, and stopped posting locations until long after I had left. Nothing else has happened since Trevor's arrest. I still use Instagram, but I never look at it the same way. Before all of this, I thought someone would need to hack my phone to know where I lived. Trevor never hacked anything. He stuttered pictures. He watched stories. He read comments between friends. He took information I had willingly shared and slowly assembled it into my real life. The account called Connor Daily only posted for 4 days, but police later showed me a folder on Trevor's phone containing pictures of me dating back almost 11 months. The accounts were not the beginning. They were just the first time he decided to let me know he was watching. The photographer in my messages. My name is Brooke, and this happened when I was 21. At the time, I was finishing my junior year of college and trying to earn extra money wherever I could. I worked part-time at a coffee shop, but between rent, textbooks, groceries, and tuition, I was constantly stressed about money. I had a public Instagram account where I posted makeup looks, outfits, and occasional portraits my friends took of me. I wasn't famous, but I had a little over 4,000 followers. Most posts got a few hundred likes, and every so often small clothing brands sent me discount codes. One afternoon, I received a message from an account called Northlight Portraits. The account belonged to a photographer named Darren Mills. His page looked professional. It had portraits of women, couples, graduating seniors, and families. He had around 12,000 followers, a website linked in his bio, and comments from people thanking him for their photos. His message said he was expanding his portfolio and wanted to offer me a free photo shoot. Normally I ignored messages like that, but his page looked legitimate, and several women from nearby colleges appeared in his pictures. I asked where the shoot would take place. He said he rented studio space in a renovated warehouse about 30 minutes from campus. He offered to send a contract and said I could bring a friend. That last part made me feel safer. I agreed and asked my roommate, Taylor, to come with me. The shoot was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon. For the week leading up to it, Darren was polite and professional. He asked what style I wanted, sent sample poses, and told me which colors looked best under the studio lighting. The only strange thing was that he messaged late at night, sometimes at 1 or 2 in the morning. He sent ideas or asked whether I had chosen outfits. I assumed photographers worked unusual hours. On the morning of the shoot, Kayla woke up sick. She had a fever and said she could barely stand. I considered canceling, but I had already spent money on makeup and clothes. Darren had also told me he reserved the studio specifically for me. When I said my friend could not come, he replied, "No problem. The building has security and other artists will be working nearby." That reassured me. The warehouse was in an older industrial section of town. The front half had been converted into offices, art studios, and small businesses, while the back still looked abandoned. I arrived around 2 in the afternoon. The parking lot contained only 3 cars. Darren met me outside. He looked exactly like his profile pictures. Mid-30s, short dark hair, glasses, black shirt, and a camera bag over one shoulder. He was friendly and calm. Inside, the building smelled like concrete, dust, and fresh paint. We walked through a hallway lined with closed metal doors. I didn't hear anyone working. I asked whether the other artists were there. Darren said most used the second floor and that sound did not carry well. His studio was at the far end of the hallway. It was smaller than I expected. There were 2 lights, several paper backdrops, a chair, a mirror, and a clothing rack. A folding screen stood in one corner for changing outfits. Nothing immediately seemed dangerous. The shoot began normally. Darren gave clear instructions and showed me several pictures on the camera. They looked good. He did not touch me or say anything inappropriate. After about 40 minutes, he suggested using a darker backdrop in another room. He said the main studio did not have enough space for a full-length setup. I asked where the room was. He pointed toward another door at the back of the studio. When he opened it, I saw a narrow hallway leading deeper into the warehouse. The lights were dimmer there. I said I was comfortable continuing in the current room. Darren smiled and said the other setup is much better. I repeated that the current room was fine. He stared at me for a second longer than normal, then closed the door. The rest of the shoot felt different after that. He asked fewer questions and checked his phone repeatedly. I began noticing details I had ignored earlier. The studio door locked from the inside with a deadbolt. The windows were too high to reach. There was no music, conversation, or footsteps from any supposed neighboring studios. At around 3:30, I said I needed to leave. Darren told me we still had another hour booked. I said my roommate needed me. He asked whether Kayla was the friend who was supposed to come. I had never told him her name. He said I must have mentioned it in our messages. I knew I had only called her my roommate. I started gathering my things. Darren stood between me and the main door. He did not threaten me. He simply said, "You're acting nervous." I told him I wasn't and asked him to move. He laughed softly. Then he said something I still remember exactly. "You girls always say you want professional pictures, but then you get scared when someone takes it seriously." I pulled out my phone. There was no signal inside the room. I told him I was going to use the bathroom. He said there was one through the back hallway. I refused. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then someone knocked on the studio door. Darren looked genuinely surprised. A man outside called his name. Darren stepped away from the door and opened it slightly. The person outside was a maintenance worker carrying a toolbox. He said there was a leak reported in the unit next door and asked whether Darren had seen water. I did not wait. I grabbed my bag, pushed past them, and walked quickly down the hallway. Darren called after me, but I did not stop. Once outside, I got into my car and locked the doors. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice before starting the engine. I called Kayla and told her what happened. She told me to call the police, but at that moment I felt embarrassed and uncertain. Darren had not physically attacked me. He had not directly threatened me. I worried the police would say I was overreacting. I drove home instead. About an hour later, Darren messaged me. "You left before we finished." I blocked him. Then another account messaged. "I still have better pictures of you." The account had no posts and no profile picture. I blocked that one too. That evening, I looked through Northlight portraits more carefully. Several things felt wrong. Many tagged models had inactive accounts. Some comments repeated the same generic phrases. A few portraits appeared to have been taken from other photographers' websites. I messaged 3 women who had been photographed by him. 2 never replied. The third woman, named Jenna, answered the next morning. She said she had never met Darren. The pictures of her on his page had been stolen from her college graduation photographer. She asked why I was contacting her. I explained what happened. She immediately told me to call the police. Before I could, Kayla came into my room holding her phone. She had received a follow request from Darren. Her account was private and did not list her last name. The only obvious connection between us was that we appeared together in old tagged pictures. Then my phone buzzed. Another new account sent me a photo. It showed me leaving the warehouse and walking toward my car. The picture had been taken from above, possibly through one of the warehouse windows. The caption said, "You looked prettier before you got scared." I called the police. An officer came to our apartment and took a report. I showed him the messages, Darren's profile, the stolen pictures, and the image of me outside. Detectives became involved quickly because the address Darren had given me was not registered as a photography business. The warehouse owner told police that the unit had been rented under a different name for only 2 months. The person renting it claimed he was storing furniture. Police searched the studio after obtaining a warrant. What they found was worse than I expected. There were hidden cameras inside a smoke detector, wall clock, and clothing rack. One camera was positioned toward the changing screen. There were hard drives containing recordings of women changing clothes, posing, and waiting alone in the studio. Some women appeared to know they were being photographed. Others clearly did not know they were being recorded from hidden angles. Police found copies of identification cards, social media profiles, home addresses, and schedules. They also found a locked room through the back hallway. Inside were more cameras, restraints, sedatives, and personal belongings linked to several women who had reported stolen purses or phones after photo shoots. Darren's real name was not Darren Mills. It was Gregory Hale. He had prior charges in another state for unlawful surveillance and impersonating a talent agent. After moving, he created new social media pages and began contacting women through Instagram. He used stolen professional photos to make his account look legitimate. He followed local colleges, salons, clothing stores, and student groups to find women nearby. The maintenance worker who interrupted us probably prevented something much worse. Gregory was arrested at a motel 2 days later. Police found several fake IDs and phones in his room. He was charged with unlawful surveillance, stalking, identity theft, possession of controlled substances, and several other crimes. Additional women came forward after his arrest. He eventually received a lengthy prison sentence. I never received the pictures he took during the legitimate part of the shoot. Police kept the camera and storage devices as evidence. For months, I blamed myself for going alone. My parents blamed the fake account. Kayla blamed herself for getting sick. But eventually, I understood that Gregory had constructed the situation specifically to seem safe. He had a polished Instagram page, a professional-looking website, contracts, studio equipment, tagged models. He told me to bring a friend because he knew saying that would make him appear trustworthy. He likely assumed there was a good chance the friend would cancel or leave early. I still post pictures sometimes, but I no longer accept unsolicited offers. I verify photographers through multiple sources, call studio owners directly, and never attend a shoot alone. The part that stays with me most is how normal the first 40 minutes were. He was polite, he adjusted lights, he showed me pictures, he acted like someone doing his job. That is what made the moment he stood between me and the door so terrifying, because by then I was already inside the room he had chosen, in a building where nobody knew I was alone. And if a maintenance worker had not knocked when he did, I don't know how that afternoon would have ended. The private story. My name is Hannah, and this happened when I was 18, during my senior year of high school. Instagram had a much bigger role in my friend group than any of us admitted. We used it for everything: making plans, gossiping, posting pictures, sharing jokes, and indirectly communicating with people we were too awkward to text directly. I had a private account with around 900 followers. Most were students from school, people from neighboring towns, or friends of friends. I also used the close friends feature. My close friends list had only 23 people. They were the people I trusted enough to see stupid videos, complaints about school, screenshots, and things I did not want everyone else seeing. One Friday night, my parents went to a wedding out of state. They were staying overnight and coming home the next afternoon. I was supposed to stay with my older cousin, but she lived almost an hour away, and I convinced my parents I was old enough to stay alone. I invited 2 friends, Olivia and Sam, to sleep over. The night started normally. We ordered pizza, watched movies, and spent most of the time talking instead of paying attention to the TV. At around 11, Olivia posted a video to her close friend story, showing the 3 of us in my living room. I posted one too. In mine, Sam was dancing badly in the kitchen, while Olivia laughed behind the camera. The video showed part of the room, the back door, and the clock on the microwave. A few minutes later, I received a reply. It came from an account belonging to a guy named Evan Brooks. Evan had gone to our school the previous year, but transferred. I barely knew him. We had one class together and occasionally liked each other's posts. His message said, "Looks fun." I checked my close friends list. Evan was not on it. I assumed I had accidentally posted publicly, but the green close friends circle was visible around the story. I asked Olivia and Sam whether they had sent it to anyone. They said no. I removed Evan as a follower and changed my password. We joked that Instagram was glitching. About 20 minutes later, another account replied to the same close friends story. This account had no profile picture and was named Green Circle 23. The message said, "You missed one." I felt a little uneasy, but still assumed someone was joking. I blocked the account. At midnight, Sam suggested we go outside and sit on the back porch. It was warm and the neighbors were quiet. We brought blankets and snacks and sat near the patio table. I posted another close friend story showing the string lights over the porch. Less than a minute later, a new account replied, "Turn around." I did. No one was behind us. The yard was empty, surrounded by a wooden fence. Beyond the fence were neighboring yards and a narrow drainage path. Olivia said we should stop posting. We went back inside and locked the door. Another message appeared. Why did you go in? That changed everything. Whoever was messaging was not simply seeing delayed posts. They were watching us in real time. We checked every downstairs window and closed the blinds. Sam turned off the porch lights. I called my cousin and told her someone online was bothering us. She offered to come get us, but we would have had to wait nearly an hour. We decided to stay together and call the police if anything happened outside. For almost half an hour, nothing did. Then Olivia's phone buzzed. A new Instagram account had sent her a picture. It showed the three of us sitting on my back porch. The photo had been taken from outside the fence. You could see the backs of our heads beneath the string lights. I called 911. While I spoke with the dispatcher, Sam checked the upstairs rooms. Olivia stayed near me, crying quietly. The dispatcher told us to remain inside, lock ourselves in an upstairs room, and avoid windows. We went into my parents' bedroom and locked the door. A few minutes later, we heard the backyard gate open. It made a specific dragging sound because the bottom scraped against the concrete. Someone walked onto the patio. We heard slow footsteps beneath us. Then the back door handle moved. The lock held. My phone buzzed again. A new account had followed me. The username was still Close Friends. The account sent one message. You were supposed to trust me. Police arrived before the person entered the house. We heard shouting outside, followed by running footsteps through the backyard. The officers searched the neighborhood, but did not find anyone immediately. They collected the pictures and account information and checked the drainage path behind the houses. Near the fence, they found a black sweatshirt, gloves, and a small camera. The memory card contained dozens of pictures of me. Some were from that night. Others had been taken over the previous 2 months. There were pictures of me leaving school, walking to my car, working at a frozen yogurt shop, and sitting near the front window of my house. Police traced the camera through its serial number and found that it had been purchased online by Evan Brooks. Evan was the student who first replied to my close friend's story. He was arrested the next morning at his mother's house. I later learned that Evan had been obsessed with me since we shared a class. I had barely spoken to him, but he interpreted likes, story views, and one conversation about homework as evidence that I was interested. After he transferred schools, he continued following my account. The part about the close friend's story was simpler than we imagined. Months earlier, I had added Evan to my list temporarily when several classmates were sharing answers and jokes about a school event. I forgot he was still there because Instagram's list was long and I did not review it often. When I thought he was not included, I was wrong. After I removed him, he created new accounts and relied on information he had already collected. He knew where I lived because I once posted a picture of a lost dog with my street sign visible in the background. He found the exact house through property listings and Street View images. On the night my parents left, my stories showed him that I was home with only 2 other girls. He drove to my neighborhood, parked several streets away, and watched from behind the fence. Police found additional accounts on his phone, along with saved copies of nearly every story I had posted over the previous year. He was charged with stalking, trespassing, harassment, and attempted burglary. Because of the amount of evidence and the fact that he approached the house after being blocked, he received jail time, probation, and a long-term protective order. My parents replaced the fence, installed cameras, and never allowed me to stay home alone again during high school. Olivia and Sam were physically safe, but none of us used Close Friends the same way afterward. I deleted almost everyone from the list. For a while, I stopped posting completely. What scared me was not that a stranger had somehow hacked into a private story. The truth was worse in a different way. There had been no hack, no complicated software, no security failure. I had invited him in months earlier and forgotten he was there. Instagram called the list Close Friends, but the app did not know who my friends were. It only knew who I selected, and one person behind that green circle had been quietly saving everything I showed him, waiting for the night my stories revealed that my parents were gone. The Memorial Account. My name is Daniel, and this happened when I was 23. 3 years earlier, my friend Marcus died in a car accident. Marcus and I had been friends since middle school. We played on the same soccer team, went to the same college for 1 year, and stayed close even after I transferred. His death was sudden and difficult for everyone. After the funeral, his younger sister converted his Instagram page into a memorial account. People continued leaving comments on old posts, especially on his birthday and the anniversary of the accident. I did too. Every few months I would look through the page and remember trips, parties, and ordinary days that felt more important after he was gone. One night, just after midnight, I received a message from Marcus's account. It said, "Do you still think about that night?" My first reaction was confusion. I assumed his sister had access and was messaging people, maybe because she was upset. I replied, "Who is this?" The account responded, "You know." I called Marcus's sister, Leah. She answered sleepily. I asked whether she was using his account. She said she had not logged into it in months. I sent her screenshots. She tried signing in and discovered the password had been changed. We reported the account to Instagram and contacted support. The next morning, the account posted a story. It was a black screen with white text. "Some people know more than they told the police." That message caused immediate panic among Marcus's friends and family. His accident had been officially ruled the result of speeding on a wet road. He was alone in the car. There was no mystery, at least none we knew about. People began messaging one another, wondering whether someone was accusing us of hiding information. Then the account posted a picture of the road where Marcus crashed. The picture was new. Flowers and a small wooden cross had been placed there after his death, and the photo showed them covered in fresh snow. Someone had gone there recently. The next message came directly to me. "Meet me where it happened. Come alone." I blocked the account. Then I received a text message from an unknown number. "Blocking a dead friend is cold." I called the police. An officer took a report, but because no direct threat had been made, he advised me not to respond and to preserve the messages. Leah received messages too, so did 2 other friends. Each one referenced personal memories involving Marcus, a camping trip, a broken window at school, a nickname only a few people knew. Whoever controlled the account had access to private messages, archived photos, and years of conversations. A few days later, packages began arriving. Leah received Marcus's old high school soccer jersey, which had disappeared after his death. Another friend received a photograph of Marcus, sleeping during a road trip. I received a small silver key. There was no note. The key belonged to an old storage unit Marcus and I rented during college. We used it for furniture between leases. After his death, I assumed the unit had been cleared by his family. I called Leah. She said she knew nothing about the key or the unit. The storage facility was about 25 minutes away. Police advised us not to go alone, so Leah and I met an officer there. The manager confirmed the unit had remained paid through automatic withdrawals from an account belonging to Marcus. Nobody had accessed it in nearly 2 years, according to their records. The key opened it. Inside were old chairs, boxes of clothes, sports equipment, and several plastic storage bins. One bin contained printed photographs. Most were normal pictures of friends and trips. But beneath them were photographs of people who did not seem to know they were being photographed. Students walking to class, women outside apartments, people entering bars. Some images were taken through windows. Leah began crying. The officer stopped us from touching anything else and called detectives. Police searched the unit fully. They found several hard drives, cameras, notebooks, and fake social media accounts. At first, it looked as though Marcus had been secretly stalking people before his death. Then investigators examined the dates. Many files had been created after Marcus died. Someone else was using the unit. Security footage from the facility showed a man entering with a copied key several times. He wore a cap and kept his face turned away from cameras. The most recent visit happened 2 days before I received the key. Police traced the automatic payments and discovered they had been transferred to a new account controlled by Marcus's former roommate, Colin. I knew Colin, but not well. He and Marcus lived together during their final year of college. After the accident, Colin moved away and stopped speaking to most of us. Detectives found him living in another county. When police searched his home, they discovered Marcus's phone, laptop, soccer jersey, photographs, and personal belongings. Colin had stolen them from Marcus's apartment after his death. He kept access to Marcus's email and Instagram because the devices were already logged in. Over time, he read years of messages and learned enough personal information to impersonate him convincingly. The more disturbing part was why. Colin had developed an obsession with Marcus's life and friends. He believed people cared more about Marcus after his death than they ever cared about him. He started using the memorial account to frighten people, create suspicion around the accident, and force himself back into our lives anonymously. The surveillance photographs in the storage unit belonged to Colin. He used Marcus's unit because he believed police would blame a dead man if the materials were discovered. He had also been watching several of us in person. The photograph of the crash site was taken by him. The packages were delivered by him. The key was sent to me because he wanted me to find the storage unit and believed Marcus had been hiding something disturbing. Detectives believed Colin planned to create a story in which Marcus had lived a secret life, then imply that one of us caused his death after discovering it. The goal was not money, it was control. Colin was arrested and charged with stalking, identity theft, unlawful access to online accounts, harassment, theft, and possession of illegal surveillance material. He eventually pleaded guilty to several charges and received prison time. Instagram restored control of Marcus's memorial account to his family. Leah deleted every message Colin had sent and changed the settings so no one could access it again. The police investigation confirmed that Marcus's accident had been exactly what we were originally told. He lost control of the car on a wet road. Nobody chased him. Nobody caused the crash. There was no hidden conspiracy. That certainty mattered to his family, but the entire experience damaged the way I remembered him. For weeks I kept thinking about the storage unit and wondering whether any of the disturbing material could have belonged to Marcus, even though police proved the files were created later. Colin had managed to contaminate memories of someone we loved by using his voice, account, and belongings. That was what he wanted. I still visit Marcus's memorial page occasionally, but I no longer send messages to it. I know memorial accounts can comfort people. They preserve photographs and comments long after someone is gone. But they also create something unsettling, a digital version of a person that continues existing after they can no longer control it. Marcus had been dead for 3 years when his account asked whether I still thought about the night he died. For several days, part of me reacted as though the message had truly come from him. Not because I believed in ghosts, because the account still had his face, his name, his pictures, and his old conversations. Colin understood that those details were enough to make us listen. He did not bring Marcus back.